It was a chilly winter evening in New York City. The streets were bustling with people rushing home, their breaths visible in the cold air. Among the crowd, a man in a long black coat walked briskly, his face half hidden by a scarf. Few noticed him, and even fewer recognized him. But if someone had looked closely, they would have seen the familiar face of Donald Trump, the former President of the United States. Trump wasn't on his way to a fancy event or a business meeting. He was on a personal mission, one that he hadn't told anyone about. Earlier that day, he had seen a news segment about a struggling family in Queens. The family, a single mother with 3 young children, had lost their home due to a fire. They were now living in a small, cramped shelter, trying to make ends meet. The story had touched him, and he decided to do something about it. As he walked, Trump thought about his own life. He had been in the public eye for decades, known for his wealth, his businesses, and his controversial statements. But this was different. This wasn't about politics or fame. This was about helping someone in need, quietly and without any fanfare. He arrived at a small, unassuming building in Queens. It was a community center that had been turned into a temporary shelter for families who had lost their homes. Trump took a deep breath and walked in. The staff at the front desk didn't recognize him at first, but when they did, their eyes widened in surprise. "I'm here to help," Trump said simply. "I want to do something for the family I saw on the news earlier." The staff quickly led him to a small room where the family was staying. The mother, a woman in her early 30s, looked exhausted but strong. Her children, 2 boys and a girl, were sitting on the floor, playing with a few worn-out toys. They looked up as Trump entered, their eyes curious but wary. Trump knelt down to their level and smiled. "Hi there," he said gently. "I heard about what happened to your home, and I want to help." The mother's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "But why? Why would you do this for us?" Trump paused for a moment, then said, "Because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes, people need a little help to get back on their feet. And I'm in a position to give that help." He spent the next hour talking with the family, listening to their story, and learning about their needs. By the end of the conversation, he had a plan. He would pay for a new apartment for them, furnish it, and cover their living expenses for the next 6 months. He also promised to help the mother find a stable job. As he left the shelter that night, Trump felt a sense of satisfaction he hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't about winning or losing. This was about making a real difference in someone's life. But this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Trump would quietly help several other families in need, all without seeking any recognition or praise. His actions would remain a secret, known only to those he helped and a few trusted aides. Little did he know, his quiet acts of kindness would eventually come to light, surprising everyone who thought they knew him. The next morning, Trump woke up early, his mind still on the family he had met the night before. He had always been a man of action, and now that he had decided to help, he wasn't going to waste any time. He called one of his trusted assistants and gave clear instructions: find a suitable apartment for the family, furnish it, and make sure they had everything they needed to start over. "I don't want anyone to know about this," Trump said firmly. "This stays between us." The assistant, who had worked with Trump for years, was surprised but didn't ask questions. He knew Trump well enough to understand that when the former president set his mind to something, he meant business. Meanwhile, the family in the shelter was still trying to process what had happened. The mother couldn't believe that someone like Donald Trump had walked into their lives and offered to help. She had always seen him on TV, a larger-than-life figure who seemed worlds apart from her struggles. But the man she had met the night before was different, kind, humble, and genuinely concerned about her family's well-being. A few days later, the family received the news: they had a new home. It was a modest but comfortable apartment in a safe neighborhood, fully furnished and stocked with groceries. The children couldn't contain their excitement as they explored their new rooms, each one decorated with care. The mother stood in the middle of the living room, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of hope. Trump didn't stop there. He reached out to a few contacts in the business world and helped the mother secure a job at a local company. It wasn't just any job, it was a position that offered stability, benefits, and opportunities for growth. The mother was overwhelmed with gratitude. She had worked hard all her life, but luck had never been on her side. Now, thanks to Trump's help, she felt like she had a real chance to rebuild her life. But Trump's kindness didn't end with this one family. Over the next few weeks, he quietly helped several others who were struggling. There was an elderly couple who had lost their savings to a scam, a young student who couldn't afford college tuition, and a veteran who was having trouble finding work. In each case, Trump stepped in without hesitation, offering financial support, resources, and encouragement. What made these acts of kindness even more remarkable was the fact that Trump never sought any recognition. He didn't call the press or post about it on social media. He simply helped because he believed it was the right thing to do. One evening, as Trump sat in his office, he reflected on what he had been doing. He had always been a controversial figure, loved by some and hated by others. But this was different. This wasn't about politics or public opinion. This was about humanity. Sometimes, he thought to himself, people just need a little help to get back on their feet. And if I can be the one to give that help, why wouldn't I? As the days turned into weeks, Trump's quiet acts of kindness began to have a ripple effect. The people he helped were inspired to pay it forward, doing what they could to help others in their communities. The mother he had helped started volunteering at a local food bank. The young student he supported began tutoring kids in his neighborhood. The veteran he assisted started a support group for other veterans struggling with the transition to civilian life. Trump's actions were changing lives in ways he couldn't have imagined. But despite the impact he was making, he remained humble. He didn't see himself as a hero or a savior. He was just a man who had been given a lot in life and wanted to give something back. However, secrets have a way of coming out, especially when they involve someone as famous as Donald Trump. It started with a few whispers here and there, a reporter who had heard about the apartment in Queens, a neighbor who had seen Trump visiting the shelter. Slowly but surely, the story began to spread. People were shocked. This wasn't the Donald Trump they thought they knew. This was a side of him they had never seen before. As the news of his secret acts of kindness started to reach the public, Trump found himself in an unusual position. For once, the spotlight wasn't on his controversies or his politics. It was on his humanity. But how would he respond? Would he embrace the attention, or would he continue to keep his actions private? Only time would tell. As whispers of Trump's secret acts of kindness began to spread, the media started to take notice. At first, it was just small local outlets reporting on the story. But soon, larger networks picked it up, and before long, it was everywhere. Headlines like "Donald Trump's Hidden Side," "Quiet Acts of Kindness," and "The Former President's Secret Mission to Help Struggling Families" dominated the news cycle. For Trump, this was unfamiliar territory. He had always been a polarizing figure, accustomed to being in the spotlight for his bold statements, business deals, or political decisions. But this time, the attention was different. People weren't talking about his wealth or his controversies, they were talking about his heart. At first, Trump wasn't sure how to react. He had never sought recognition for helping others. In fact, he had gone out of his way to keep his actions private. But now that the story was out, he knew he had to address it. One evening, as he sat in his office, Trump received a call from a close friend. "People are talking about what you've been doing," the friend said. "They're calling you a hero. How do you feel about that?" Trump chuckled. "I'm no hero," he replied. I just did what anyone would do if they had the means. These people needed help, and I was in a position to give it. That's all. But the friend persisted. You've made a real difference in their lives. Don't you think people should know that there's more to you than what they see on TV? Trump thought about it for a moment. He had spent decades building a public image as a tough, no-nonsense businessman and leader. But this was a side of him that even he hadn't fully explored. Maybe it was time to let people see that side. The next day, Trump agreed to an interview with a well-known journalist. It wasn't his usual style, he preferred to control the narrative, but this time, he decided to let his actions speak for themselves. The interview took place in Trump's office, a spacious room filled with memorabilia from his career. The journalist, a seasoned reporter known for her thoughtful questions, began by asking Trump about the family in Queens. "What made you decide to help them?" she asked. Trump leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I saw their story on the news, and it hit me. Here was a mother trying her best to take care of her kids, but life had dealt her a tough hand. I've been fortunate in my life, and I thought, why not help? It wasn't about politics or publicity. It was just about doing the right thing." The journalist nodded, impressed by his sincerity. "And what about the others you've helped? The elderly couple, the student, the veteran, why did you reach out to them?" Trump smiled. "Because they needed it. It's as simple as that. I've always believed in the power of opportunity. Sometimes, all people need is a little boost to get back on their feet. If I can give them that boost, why wouldn't I?" As the interview continued, Trump opened up about his motivations in a way he never had before. He talked about his own struggles early in his career, the times when he had faced setbacks and needed help to keep going. He spoke about the importance of giving back and how helping others had given him a sense of fulfillment that no business deal or political victory ever could. The journalist was struck by his humility. This wasn't the brash, outspoken Trump the public was used to seeing. This was a man who genuinely cared about making a difference. When the interview aired, the response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life, supporters and critics alike, were moved by Trump's story. Social media was flooded with messages of gratitude and admiration. "I never thought I'd say this, but Donald Trump has inspired me," one person tweeted. "This is the side of him we never see. Thank you for showing us that there's more to him than meets the eye," another wrote. Even some of Trump's harshest critics found themselves softening their stance. "I may not agree with his politics, but you can't deny the good he's done here," one commentator said on a news program. For Trump, the response was both humbling and empowering. He had always been a man who thrived on attention, but this was different. This wasn't about him, it was about the people he had helped and the impact he had made. But as the spotlight grew brighter, Trump knew he had to be careful. He didn't want his actions to be seen as a publicity stunt or a way to improve his image. He wanted to keep the focus on the people he had helped and the importance of giving back. In the weeks that followed, Trump continued his quiet mission, helping more families and individuals in need. But this time, he also used his platform to encourage others to do the same. "We all have the power to make a difference," he said in a speech. "It doesn't matter how much money you have or how famous you are. What matters is that you care enough to help someone who needs it." His words resonated with people across the country. Inspired by his example, many began to look for ways to help others in their own communities. Food banks saw an increase in donations, volunteer organizations reported a surge in sign-ups, and people started reaching out to neighbors and strangers alike to offer support. Trump's secret acts of kindness had started a chain reaction, one that was changing lives in ways he could never have imagined. But as the story continued to unfold, one question remained: what would Trump do next? As the ripple effect of Trump's kindness continued to spread, he found himself in a unique position. The public's perception of him was shifting, and he was being seen in a new light, not just as a businessman or a politician, but as someone who genuinely cared about helping others. But with this newfound admiration came a new challenge: how to keep the focus on the people he was helping, rather than on himself. Trump knew that if he wasn't careful, his actions could be misinterpreted. Some might see his efforts as a calculated move to improve his image, while others might expect him to solve every problem. He didn't want that. His goal was simple: to make a difference, one person at a time. One afternoon, Trump received a call from a close advisor. "People are starting to expect more from you," the advisor said. "They're asking what you're going to do next. How do you want to handle this?" Trump thought for a moment. "I'm not here to be anyone's savior," he replied. "I'm just doing what I can to help. If people want to follow my example, that's great. But this isn't about me. It's about them." With that in mind, Trump decided to take a step back from the spotlight. He continued to help people quietly, but he also began to encourage others to join him in his mission. He started by reaching out to some of the wealthiest and most influential people he knew: business leaders, celebrities, and philanthropists. "We have the resources to make a real difference," he told them. "Let's use them to help those who need it most." To his surprise, many of them agreed. They were inspired by Trump's actions and wanted to be part of something meaningful. Together, they formed a coalition dedicated to addressing some of the most pressing issues facing communities across the country: homelessness, unemployment, education, and more. But Trump didn't stop there. He also reached out to everyday people, encouraging them to do what they could to help others. In a series of interviews and public appearances, he emphasized that kindness didn't have to come in the form of grand gestures. "It's the little things that matter," he said. Helping a neighbor, volunteering at a local shelter, or even just lending an ear to someone who's struggling, it all makes a difference. His message resonated with people from all walks of life. Inspired by his example, many began to look for ways to help others in their own communities. Food banks saw an increase in donations, volunteer organizations reported a surge in sign-ups, and people started reaching out to neighbors and strangers alike to offer support. One particularly touching story came from a small town in the Midwest. A young boy had heard about Trump's acts of kindness and decided to start his own initiative. He organized a fundraiser to buy school supplies for children in need, and within weeks, he had raised enough money to help dozens of families. When Trump heard about the boy's efforts, he was deeply moved. He reached out to the boy personally, praising him for his initiative and offering to match the funds he had raised. "You're proof that anyone can make a difference," Trump told him. "Keep up the good work." The boy's story was just one of many that began to emerge as people across the country were inspired to take action. It seemed that Trump's quiet acts of kindness had sparked a movement, one that was spreading far beyond what he had ever imagined. But as the movement grew, so did the challenges. Not everyone was supportive of Trump's efforts. Some critics accused him of using his philanthropy as a way to distract from his past controversies. Others questioned his motives, suggesting that he was only helping others to gain favor with the public. Trump was aware of the criticism, but he didn't let it deter him. He knew that no matter what he did, there would always be people who doubted him. But he also knew that the people he had helped, the families, the students, the veterans, were living proof that his actions were making a real difference. One evening, as Trump sat in his office reflecting on everything that had happened, he received a letter from the mother he had helped in Queens. In it, she thanked him not just for the apartment and the job, but for giving her family a second chance. "You didn't just change our lives," she wrote. "You gave us hope. And because of you, we're paying it forward, helping others in our community. Thank you for showing us that kindness matters." Trump smiled as he read the letter. This was why he had done it, not for the recognition or the praise, but for moments like this. Moments that reminded him of the power of kindness and the impact it could have. As he put the letter down, Trump knew that his work was far from over. There were still so many people who needed help, so many lives that could be changed with a little compassion and generosity. But he also knew that he couldn't do it alone. The movement he had started was bigger than him now, and it would take all of them, business leaders, everyday people, and everyone in between, to keep it going. With that thought in mind, Trump made a decision. He would continue to help others, but he would also use his platform to inspire even more people to join the cause. Together, they could create a world where kindness wasn't the exception, but the rule. And as he looked out the window at the city skyline, Trump felt a sense of hope, not just for himself, but for all of them. The movement Trump had unintentionally started was gaining momentum. Stories of kindness and generosity were popping up everywhere, from small towns to big cities. People were inspired by his example and were finding their own ways to make a difference. But as the movement grew, so did the challenges. Trump knew that sustaining this wave of goodwill would require more than just individual acts of kindness. It would need structure, collaboration, and a clear vision for the future. One morning, Trump sat down with his team to discuss the next steps. "We've started something powerful here," he said. "But if we want it to last, we need to think bigger. We need to create something that will outlive us." The team agreed, and together they began to outline a plan. They decided to establish a foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping people in need and inspiring others to do the same. The foundation would focus on key areas like housing, education, employment, and healthcare, providing resources and support to those who needed it most. Trump knew that launching a foundation would put him back in the spotlight, but he was willing to take that risk if it meant making a lasting impact. He also knew that he couldn't do it alone. He reached out to experts in philanthropy, community organizing, and social work to help shape the foundation's mission and programs. The foundation was officially launched a few months later, with a simple but powerful name, the Kindness Initiative. Its mission was clear: to create a world where no one is left behind, and where kindness is at the heart of every community. The launch event was held in New York City, and it brought together people from all walks of life, business leaders, activists, volunteers, and even some of the people Trump had helped over the past year. The atmosphere was electric, filled with a sense of hope and possibility. Trump took the stage to a round of applause. He looked out at the crowd, his expression serious but warm. "This isn't about me," he began. "It's about all of us. It's about recognizing that we have the power to make a difference, no matter who we are or where we come from. Kindness isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a necessity. It's what brings us together and helps us build a better future." He went on to share stories of the people who had inspired him, the family in Queens, the elderly couple, the young student, the veteran, and so many others. He spoke about the ripple effect of kindness, how one act of generosity could inspire countless others. "But this is just the beginning," he said. "The Kindness Initiative is our chance to take this movement to the next level. Together, we can create real, lasting change. And it starts with each of us, right here, right now." The crowd erupted into applause, and Trump stepped off the stage, feeling a mix of pride and humility. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready for the challenge. In the weeks that followed, the Kindness Initiative began to take shape. Programs were launched to provide housing for families in need, scholarships for students, job training for veterans, and healthcare services for underserved communities. Volunteers from across the country signed up to help, and donations poured in from individuals and corporations alike. One of the foundation's most impactful programs was called Second Chances. It focused on helping people who had faced significant setbacks, whether due to financial hardship, health issues, or other challenges, get back on their feet. The program provided not just financial support, but also mentorship, counseling, and access to resources that could help them rebuild their lives. Trump took a personal interest in the program, often meeting with participants to hear their stories and offer encouragement. One such meeting was with a man in his 50s who had lost his job and his home after a serious illness. "I didn't think I'd ever get back on my feet," the man told Trump. But because of this program, I have hope again. I have a job, a place to live, and people who believe in me. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Trump shook the man's hand, his eyes filled with emotion. You did this, he said. We just gave you the tools. You're the one who made it happen. Stories like these became the heart of the Kindness Initiative. They were a reminder of why the foundation existed and the impact it was having. But as the foundation grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics continued to question Trump's motives, and some accused him of using the foundation to rehabilitate his image. Trump didn't let the criticism get to him. He knew that the work he was doing was bigger than any one person. It was about the lives that were being changed, the communities that were being strengthened, and the hope that was being restored. One evening, as Trump sat in his office reviewing the foundation's progress, he received a call from an old friend. I have to admit, the friend said, I wasn't sure about this at first. But seeing what you've accomplished, it's incredible. You've really made a difference. Trump smiled. It's not just me, he said. It's all of us. And we're just getting started. As he hung up the phone, Trump felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. He knew that there was still so much work to be done, but he also knew that they were on the right path. The Kindness Initiative was more than just a foundation, it was a movement. And it was changing the world, one act of kindness at a time. The Kindness Initiative was now in full swing, and its impact was being felt across the country. From providing housing for homeless families to offering scholarships for underprivileged students, the foundation was changing lives in ways that no one had imagined. But as the organization grew, so did the challenges. Trump knew that maintaining the momentum would require constant effort, innovation, and a willingness to adapt. One of the biggest challenges was ensuring that the foundation's programs were reaching the people who needed them most. While the initiative had already helped thousands, there were still countless others who were struggling in silence. Trump and his team knew they had to find new ways to connect with these individuals and communities. To address this, they launched a nationwide outreach campaign called Kindness Connects. The campaign aimed to raise awareness about the foundation's programs and encourage people to reach out for help if they needed it. It also sought to inspire others to get involved, whether by volunteering, donating, or simply spreading the word. The campaign kicked off with a series of events in cities across the country. Trump personally attended several of these events, meeting with community leaders, volunteers, and beneficiaries of the foundation's programs. At each stop, he emphasized the importance of kindness and the power of collective action. We're all in this together, he said at one event. No one should have to face their struggles alone. That's what the Kindness Initiative is all about, coming together to lift each other up. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life were inspired to get involved, and the foundation saw a surge in volunteers and donations. But perhaps the most heartwarming aspect of the campaign was the stories that began to emerge, stories of people who had been helped by the foundation and were now paying it forward. One such story came from a young woman in Chicago. She had been a recipient of the Foundation's scholarship program and was now on track to graduate from college with a degree in social work. I wouldn't be here without the Kindness Initiative, she said at an event. They didn't just help me financially, they gave me hope. And now, I want to do the same for others. That's why I've decided to dedicate my career to helping people in need. Trump was deeply moved by her words. That's what this is all about, he said. It's not just about helping people in the moment, it's about empowering them to create a better future for themselves and others. As the campaign continued, the foundation began to explore new ways to expand its impact. One of the most innovative initiatives was a partnership with local businesses to create job opportunities for people who had faced significant barriers to employment, such as veterans, formerly incarcerated individuals, and single parents. The program, called Kindness Works, provided training, mentorship, and support to help participants succeed in their new roles. It also encouraged businesses to adopt more inclusive hiring practices and create supportive work environments. The program was a resounding success, with hundreds of people finding stable, meaningful employment. One of the program's first participants was a veteran who had struggled to find work after returning from service. "I felt like I had been forgotten," he said. "But the Kindness Initiative gave me a chance. They believed in me when no one else did, and now I have a job that I love. I'm proud to be part of this movement." Trump was thrilled with the program's success, but he knew there was still more to be done. He began to think about how the foundation could address some of the root causes of the issues they were tackling, such as poverty, lack of access to education, and systemic inequality. To this end, he assembled a team of experts to develop long-term strategies for creating sustainable change. They began by conducting research and gathering data to better understand the challenges facing different communities. Based on their findings, they developed a series of initiatives aimed at addressing these issues at their core. One of the most ambitious initiatives was a plan to build affordable housing in underserved areas. The foundation partnered with local governments, nonprofits, and private developers to create housing that was not only affordable but also sustainable and community-focused. The first project was launched in a small town in Ohio that had been hit hard by economic decline. The foundation worked with the community to design a housing development that included not just homes, but also a community center, a job training facility, and a small business incubator. The project was a game-changer for the town, providing much-needed housing and creating new opportunities for residents. Trump visited the site during construction and was struck by the sense of hope and optimism in the air. "This is what it's all about," he said to the project team. "We're not just building houses, we're building communities. We're creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive." As the foundation continued to grow and evolve, Trump found himself reflecting on his own journey. He had started out wanting to help a single family, but that act of kindness had sparked a movement that was now changing lives across the country. He knew that there would always be challenges and setbacks, but he also knew that the foundation's work was making a real difference. And as long as there were people willing to come together and support one another, there was hope for a better future. But as the foundation's impact grew, so did the expectations. People were looking to Trump not just as a leader, but as a symbol of what was possible when kindness and compassion guided our actions. It was a heavy responsibility, but Trump was ready to embrace it. He knew that the work he was doing was bigger than him, and he was determined to see it through. As he looked out at the bustling construction site in Ohio, Trump felt a sense of pride and purpose. The Kindness Initiative was more than just a foundation, it was a movement. And it was changing the world, one act of kindness at a time. The Kindness Initiative had become a force to be reckoned with. What had started as a quiet act of kindness by Donald Trump had grown into a nationwide movement, touching countless lives and inspiring people across the country. But as the foundation continued to expand, Trump knew that the real work was just beginning. Sustaining the momentum and ensuring that the foundation's impact would last for generations would require even greater effort and vision. One of the foundation's most significant achievements was the creation of kindness centers in communities across the country. These centers served as hubs for the foundation's programs, offering everything from job training and healthcare services to educational workshops and community events. They were designed to be safe spaces where people could come together, support one another, and access the resources they needed to thrive. The first Kindness Center opened in Queens, not far from where Trump had first met the family that inspired his journey. The opening ceremony was a joyous occasion, attended by community members, volunteers, and beneficiaries of the foundation's programs. Trump stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd with a sense of pride and gratitude. "This center is more than just a building," he said. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we come together with kindness and compassion. It's a place where people can find hope, support, and opportunity. And it's a reminder that no one is alone in their struggles." The crowd erupted into applause, and Trump stepped down from the stage to mingle with the attendees. He spent hours talking to people, listening to their stories, and offering words of encouragement. It was a side of him that many had never seen before, a side that was humble, empathetic, and deeply human. As the foundation continued to grow, Trump began to think about its long-term future. He knew that for the Kindness Initiative to have a lasting impact, it would need strong leadership and a clear vision. To that end, he assembled a board of directors made up of some of the most respected leaders in philanthropy, business, and social justice. The board's first task was to develop a strategic plan for the foundation's next phase. They identified key areas of focus, including expanding the kindness centers, increasing access to education and healthcare, and addressing systemic issues like poverty and inequality. They also set ambitious goals for the foundation, such as helping 1 million people within the next 5 years. Trump was thrilled with the board's work, but he also knew that the foundation's success would depend on the support of people across the country. To that end, he launched a campaign called Kindness Nation, aimed at inspiring individuals, businesses, and communities to take action in their own ways. The campaign's slogan was simple but powerful: "Kindness starts with you." It encouraged people to look for ways to help others, whether through volunteering, donating, or simply being kind in their everyday interactions. The campaign quickly gained traction, with people sharing their stories of kindness on social media using the hashtag #KindnessNation. One of the most touching stories came from a small town in Texas. A group of high school students had heard about the campaign and decided to organize a kindness drive in their community. They collected donations of food, clothing, and school supplies for families in need, and they also volunteered at a local shelter. When Trump heard about their efforts, he was deeply moved. He reached out to the students personally, thanking them for their work and inviting them to visit a kindness center. "You're proof that kindness knows no age," he told them. "What you're doing is changing lives, and I'm so proud of you." The student's story was just one of many that emerged as the Kindness Nation campaign spread. It seemed that everywhere Trump looked, he saw people coming together to support one another, inspired by the foundation's mission. But as the foundation's impact grew, so did the challenges. There were still countless people who needed help, and the issues they faced were complex and deeply rooted. Trump knew that the foundation couldn't solve every problem, but he was determined to do everything in his power to make a difference. One evening, as Trump sat in his office reflecting on the foundation's journey, he received a letter from the mother he had helped in Queens. In it, she shared an update on her family's progress and expressed her gratitude for everything he had done. "You didn't just change our lives," she wrote. "You gave us hope. And because of you, we're paying it forward, helping others in our community. Thank you for showing us that kindness matters." Trump smiled as he read the letter. This was why he had done it, not for the recognition or the praise, but for moments like this. Moments that reminded him of the power of kindness and the impact it could have. As he put the letter down, Trump felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in a long time. He knew that there was still so much work to be done, but he also knew that they were on the right path. The Kindness Initiative was more than just a foundation, it was a movement. And it was changing the world, one act of kindness at a time. As he looked out the window at the city skyline, Trump felt a sense of hope, not just for himself, but for all of them.